Thank you. Thank you, Mayor McDonald, for the technical assistance and for the introduction. So as you said, we're here tonight to talk about the Filion Drain Engineers Report, which is part of a municipal drain, and I thought I'd remind folks what a municipal drain is before we get into it. So a municipal drain is a system to move water. It's created pursuant to a bylaw passed by the local municipality. The municipality is responsible for the construction of the drainage system and all future maintenance and repair. And then costs can be recovered from the property owners in the watershed of the drain. Since these municipal drains are identified by municipal bylaws that adopt an engineer's report, which is what we're discussing today, these reports contain plans, profiles, and specifications defining the location, size, and depth of the drain, and how costs are shared among property owners. So there is an existing Filion Drain Engineers Report, and this is a project to update it. And we have with us tonight Gary McDonald and Sean McDonald, the township's drainage superintendents, if you guys could put up your hand. And we also have our consultant from Macintosh Perry, Robbie, who will be providing us a presentation. So the order of operations will be Robbie will provide the presentation. Council will have an opportunity to ask questions of Robbie. His co-person, I suppose, Lucas, is unable to be here, so there may be some questions we'll need to refer back and perhaps do a bit of follow-up on. After Council's had an opportunity to ask questions, we'll go to the 3 registered speakers, and they'll have an opportunity to come up to the podium and address Council. And if there are questions specific to your individual assessment schedules, those will likely be referred back to a conversation afterwards. But if they're specific to the engineer's report, it's possible that Robbie may have an answer. If that sounds okay with Council, we'll... Excellent. Robbie.
Check the back. There's a button back there.
Hello. All right. So, thank you, Sarah. My name is Robbie, EIT from Macintosh Perry. I work pretty closely with Lucas, who unfortunately is out of commission today. So, I'm gonna have to take over the reins for the meeting to consider. The purpose of the meeting today is just to present the prepared engineer's report, and hopefully maybe with the help of Gary and Sean answer some questions that might arise. Then we're gonna see where it goes from there, and provided is it accepted, provisionally approve the report and provide first and second readings of the bylaw. So just some background on the Filion Drain. The last revision to the report was in 1978. So we're going to update it, or we're proposing to update it to incorporate the private crossings on the drain, as that is the now new accepted practice to fairly assess the costs of repairing and dealing with these crossings, and essentially allow them to be grantable. So it is a fairly big drain, over 15 kilometers in length with 3 branches, McDonald branch, the Campo branch, and the Campo spur. Drains about 8,500 acres of mixed land use. I'd say predominantly agricultural, but there is some residential in there and whatnot. So that's just kind of a schematic there of our watershed that we used to prepare the engineer's report. So all of the parcels there within the watershed are getting assessed. So the purpose of the report, as I said, is to make the engineer's report grantable. We also had the chance to assess conveyance of the culverts for a 5-year design flow, and we also drafted updated assessment schedules to make sure everything's fairly assessed for future maintenance. So the report was prepared under Section 78 of the Drainage Act. Obviously, right now we're here at the meeting to consider, and once the meeting is concluded, Council may adopt the report provisionally. Then notices are to be sent out. The appeal period begins, and finally, Council may give a 3rd reading and make it a legal priority. So I'll go into the assessments a little bit here. So we split them into outlet, benefit, and then, of course, there's the grant. The factors we look at are the property size, the land use, how far away it is from the drain, and then we split the drain up into sections and subsections and apply factors to those as well. So the benefit, the way we did it for future maintenance for this one was the lands immediately on the drain are to get assessed for benefit. But for the initial construction, the report benefit will go to those who own a culvert that will be getting incorporated in the drain, as they will be seeing, you know, the most benefit from the updated report. And then the outlet is defined as any lands that are in the catchment area or outlet to the drain. So for future maintenance, the idea is that only properties upstream are to be assessed, as they will be getting the improved outlet. And then talk about grants. So the Agricultural Drainage Infrastructure Program offers a 1/3 grant to properties with farm tax classification. And the eligibility is double checked before every future maintenance assessment. And please, to any landowners, check if you are classified correctly. We get our information from the province and the county. And also, if you believe you're eligible, please contact OMAFRA. Make sure they've correctly identified you in their system, as that's how you get your grant. So we'll go into a bit more information on these assessments, specifically the factors now. So we use the land use factor, which are used to reflect the volume and the amount of runoff on different types of properties. Rural properties, which include agricultural land, are given a factor of 1, whereas residential properties that are non-agricultural or have less than 2 hectares give a factor of 2. And then, you know, high density and hard surface areas like commercial buildings, roads, et cetera, are given a factor of 4. And then the next factor is the distance factor. So that kind of just looks at the proximity of a property to the drain, reduces the assessment for properties further away to account for any water loss, like from infiltration, evaporation, etc. So properties that are within 2 meters are given a factor of 1, and it goes down from there. But for example, if, you know, part of your property is, you know, within 200 meters and the rest of it's between 200 and 600, that's weighted for that, so we account for it. This just, again, is from our plans that we use, just shows you our distance factors and kind of how we make those measurements. So lastly, for the factors, the section and subsection factors. So for future maintenance, the drain is going to be divided into 5 different sections from downstream to upstream. And like I said, you're just going to be assessing the lands upstream. And each section also has subsections within that, as shown there, and accounts for, you know, how much the section is actually being used by a given property. So we have a quick sample calculation. So a certain amount is going to be assessed for benefit and for outlet. And the calculation for each is essentially the benefit factored area or the outlet factored area for your property over the total benefit factored area or outlet factored area, and then multiplied by, you know, the allotted amount that is going to benefit or outlet. And then after that, you apply those factors that I just spoke of, and then that's how we get your assessment. So moving over to the cost, as mentioned, for this report, the benefit is to be assessed to those with culverts and crossings that are going to be adopted by this report. and costs are split 50-50 between benefit and outlet. As seen there, there's a little table. And yeah, that's how we're going to be splitting it up for this one. Keep going. And lastly, appeals. So 3 bodies are available. The Court of Revision for assessment appeals. The tribunal can be used for technical appeals and appeals from the Court of Revision. And finally, there's a referee for legal and procedural appeals. So the Court of Revision is to be scheduled for any time after this meeting to consider. I don't believe it's been determined yet. But landowners may appeal to the COR on the following grounds. So if a property has an assessment that they believe is too high or too low, any land or road that should have been assessed but has not been assessed, or if proper consideration was not given to the land use of their property. And lastly, I'd like to point out that per the Drainage Act, please note, landowners shall send written notice of their appeal at least 10 days before the first sitting of the Court of Revision. So that's it for me. Again, I'm not Lucas. He's the undersigned there. But I'm ready to field any questions I can, maybe with the help of Sean and Gary as well. So thank you.
Thank you for your presentation. Are there any questions of council based on what we've seen? Deputy Mayor Lang.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, through you. You guys have done quite a few of these? Is this the first one? No?
No, we have done quite a few, yeah.
And I assume you have a formula. Is this a formula that's followed province-wide?
Yeah, the assessment formula is, from what I understand, it's pretty well documented in the Drainage Act for how you assess certain properties. And yeah, I mean, we have a template and whatnot that we followed.
Okay. That's what I thought. I just wanted to make sure that, you know, it wasn't the first one you guys had done, and that you were following something that's been pretty well accepted province-wide. Thank you.
I guess I have a question about the roads factors. Is there any, and it's maybe just a statement that townships typically get stuck with a larger portion of the benefit with the ditches coming down roads. That's fairly standard as well, I imagine. I think it has been since the 70s, likely.
Yeah. So I don't know if you guys have it. That's the way I understand it. I mean, for most of the assessment schedules I've worked on, the roads, you know, they do have a factor of 4, so it is a little higher. But you know, a lot of the road kind of has to be in the watershed because I mean, roads are skinny by nature, right? So that's the way I see it. But yeah, they do have a factor of 4, and that's the accepted factor.
Okay. No, I always just wondered if a township would ever appeal for that, but probably not in the past. I also like the future culvert clause and the future maintenance clause. Those are some things that it allows it open to if somebody wants to put a crossing, that they can put it there in the future, but it's at their own expense, and it's very well written there because I've seen, you know, non-report culverts or crossings end up down the road or something. So I like the clearness there, and we do appreciate from the administrative side the extension joining the main drain. That makes it a lot easier at the end. I appreciate that you accommodated that when you did the whole drain.
Yep.
Councillor Jaworski.
Thank you, through you, Mayor McDonald. My question is on, I guess it's page 17 of what we received. I'm not sure the slide number for you, but it's the one that had initial cost and then distribution. I wasn't clear exactly on these numbers. These are example numbers, these are actual numbers?
I don't deal with cost, so I don't know what if those numbers are real or
Just the report?
okay.
Okay. Okay.
I imagine it would be the amount, just if you click it on the back and then click the front there. Should be a button.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. And through you, yes, this is the initial cost of the report. The benefit portion is to be split amongst the landowners who are getting a culvert as part of this report. So that benefit portion would be split amongst roughly 25 different property owners, whereas the outlet portion is to be distributed amongst all the landowners within the watershed. So that's how the landowners who are getting a culvert as part of this report, that's how they see a higher portion of the cost. They see more benefit out of the grant eligibility and having them incorporated.
All right, are there any questions around the table? Then we will welcome our first speakers. I'll let Ms. McDonald MC.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Now, I noticed a few people walked in late. Were any of the latecomers hoping to speak? Maybe put your hands up so that I... No? Okay, so then we have three speakers tonight. I'll give you about 4 minutes, and about the 3-minute, 30-second mark, I'll put up my hand, and you'll know that you're approaching the end of your speaking time. So, Paul Springer, please and thank you.
I don't know how to operate this thing, but the voice now is pretty good anyway.
Yeah, we put it on for, we do live stream, so somebody will help you.
Probably I'm asking the wrong type of question. Maybe it should be for after the meeting. I just want to know what it'll cost me, but I would have thought that maybe every citizen that was going to pay for some of this should have had sort of an average or an estimate of what they might end up paying. And if they couldn't do that, they should have done like a really dummy assessment on what they would pay. Now, the thing I found about the report is it had a lot of wonderful maps and charts and numbers, but it was sort of like meaningless to me because my vision is kind of dropping, and even though I got another set of reading glasses, which is the bottom half of these, it just got too gooey for me to go through every little detail to find out what it would cost me. Because have we any way of knowing if there's going to be a limit on this, or if it can just get a life of its own and, just charge tabs and keep sending people taxes? So I actually called Lucas, and he told me that it was going to cost me something like $46. Now, I didn't understand what he meant by that in a way, because is it $46 every time we pay a tax bill? Is it going to be in perpetuity, or is it going to be a one-time thing? So I think I've basically said what I have to say, and I'm hoping that someone before the end of all this or just after the end of all this can give me a better idea and how far it's going to go, I find everybody here quite level-headed, but you never know, eh? I mean, in simple terms, groceries don't cost what they used to cost once anymore. And workmen, because I have other property that do repairs, don't cost what they used to cost anymore. So where is all this going? That's my simple question, okay? Thank you.
Do you mind if I try and take this, Gary and Sean, and if you need help? So that $46 will be for the preparation of this report. This report allocates the expenses, or as they call them, outlet and benefit, but the portion of the drain, which is essentially yours to maintain. So in future years, whatever that cost is, will be apportioned to you by that percentage. So let's take a simple drain. If you had 4 properties and one was 25%, well, that's silly, sorry. 10%, 10%, 10%, and 60%. If the first report cost $1,000, that would be allocated, I should have said 700, 100, 100, 100, and then the next time it would be apportioned based on the cost of the project. So there's no guarantee when it will be done. It's typically, we do it, drains get maintained when requested, But once requested, the township is obligated to clean them out because it is a municipal drain. And then, so we employ generally a backhoe sediment removal, and the cost of that gets a portion based on the percentage that is based on this. And if you're looking for a tie-in to your property, if you look on the assessment schedule, it will have a roll number. That's your tax roll number. So if you look at your tax numbers, it's likely a 0101, what would that be? 001 on the Lancaster side. If you're on the Schlottenberg side, it's 006, and you can find your number that way if you want to specifically see it through the report. But I guess Lucas is also available potentially to field those calls.
Yeah.
Councillor McDonnell?
Just a thought, it might be of a bit of help if maybe Sean or Gary could take a few seconds just to explain the basics of a municipal drain. The $46 is probably your share of the report, but in the future, whatever work is requested to clean it, to make sure that your water is getting downstream and getting out to the St. Lawrence River, you'll have to pay a portion of what it costs to clean it, probably not far off that 46, depending how much they do in a year. But Gary and Sean will do a good job explaining that, I'm sure.
I think you've done a good job of explaining it, Sam. That $46 would be for the cost of this report. That should have been what Lucas told you, calced for you. And as Sam said, maintenance is basically when people ask for it. So we can't tell you it'll be 2 years' time. It could be in 10 years' time. But whatever maintenance is done, you will pay a share of it if you're an upstream owner. So, and that would carry for the culverts as well. When the culverts get replaced in the future, everybody that contributes water pays their share towards that towards that culvert, based on the acreage and property you own and where it's located, etc.
Did that satisfy your question?
Well, it satisfies me in the sense that you've all made an effort, and maybe I'm a bit of a dud, but it still sort of leaves it up in the air, you know what I mean? Okay, a culvert is the sort of metal spiral under the road when you are going towards your house. So I got 2 of those, and I've got my first 8 acres are drained, and they enter the one of the main ditches, which is on the side. So I'm on 25 acres, but only the first 8 are drained. So what I'm really looking for is, like I'm at a salad bar or a restaurant where you pick and choose, and they tell me, well, that's what it's going to sort of cost you if you want to play to that. I'm not getting that from this. I'm getting that, you know, we're going to adopt a report, and it all sounds like good sense, and it looks nice, but we don't know what this is going to lead to in money for the individual. So that's what I'm here talking about, and I guess I'm going to have to do like everybody else, unless somebody can come to me and do an estimate, even if it's not a perfect estimate. I would like to know what's going to happen in the next year or 2 years over this whole business.
So I'll just, take a crack. As this is an update to an existing report, if this report doesn't pass, there'll be still costs assessed against properties that are benefiting under the 1976-78 report. So the addition added here is that culverts are now assessed back to in some way, shape, or form. So it's not adding something new, it's just bringing in culverts and bringing them into the report and making them part of the framework by which the township is obligated to provide maintenance, more or less. With that, we'll move on to our second speaker. I have L.A. Faubert.
Hi, more or less, it's more or less like what he said. We wanted to know what each individual was going to cost, and you're talking about culverts. Does that mean also the culverts that go into our property, or only the culverts from the Filion drain? You know, because all their ditches are, the water's going a certain way. Well, like if you look like where we're very low, like water usually doesn't run uphill, so it's like it's hard to see how our water is gonna be going down to the St. Lawrence River, you know? It's like, and if we need a new culvert at our driveway or something like that, I thought it's to the owner's expense, but now that we're gonna be paying to this, will that include that culvert, or? Because it doesn't, you know, a lot of things, like for you guys, it's easy, but for the rest of us, you know, like to read this, it's, if I bring you a report from my work, you guys would all be lost. Well, it's the same thing for us too, you know, it's like, we want to know more or less, it's what's going on.
Alain, I should point out that the culverts we're talking about here are not for, let's say, one on in your laneway.
It's just the
They're on
Filion drains.
They're on the Filion drain,
Okay.
on the large drain. And those, as to when they'll get replaced, it's kind of a guess. We're hoping, if you look at most of these culverts today, they look like they have a lot of life left in them. But there could be one in 4 or 5 years needs replaced, 7 or 8.
Yeah.
And we will only be doing them when they need to be done. So that's why we can't tell you when you're going to get a bill. They'll be replaced as the need arises. So most of them are 40-plus years old now, but a lot of them are.
Once again, that's the ones on the Filion drain, Gary?
Yes, yeah. Is that the ones you're asking about, Alan?
No, it's just, it's like everything's up in the air, it's normal, we don't deal with this every day, so it's sort of, it's more complicated for us to.
No, but this report is just for the culverts on the Filion drain. And
Yeah.
for those that maybe don't know, the Filion drain, by the way, starts about a kilometer north of the Brown House on Highway 34. That's where it begins. And it crosses west of North Lancaster about a kilometer, then kind of heads southeast and ends up just north of Baynesville. So it's quite an extensive drain.
Yeah.
With a lot of culverts on it.
But it's just normal for us to know, like, at what cost, once again, you know, like, and like future work, there's always cleaning of ditches, there's erosion, there's trees growing, like, at what point could it cost, like, once again, like, sir was saying here, like, at what cost could it go to the landowners? Once again, I understand with the percentage and whatnot, but it's just harder for us as landowners to figure this out, you know? So it's just a question of that it would be nice that it would be a little clearer. That's it.
Okay, Councillor McDonnell?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, just a question for Mr. McDonald, I guess. How much work would you say in regards to, say, cleaning of the Filion drains been done in the last 5 years, say, or 10 years? Have we done much cleaning on the Filion? Just, it might give into perspective if we've done any cleaning. For the most part, most of the people here would have seen it on a tax bill or maybe missed it because it was a small enough portion, say, or I don't know.
Well, the most significant cost recently was the replacement of the culvert 1 kilometer west of North Lancaster at Kenny McDonnell's farm, right beside the road. And it was at a cost of $20,000, give or take. And that cost will get assessed from everybody from where that culvert is. Upstream of that culvert will pay into that because it's, you know, it's the community's water that's causing the culvert to need to be that big, and everybody pays their share of that cost.
Well, thanks.
It's normal also that the volume of the water is changing also, you know, like, you look 20, 25 years ago, there was a lot less tile drainage also, so nowadays there's more tile drainage, the water volume's coming up, so that's another factor in it too.
Yeah, I believe the engineering firm takes that all into account whenever they do their breakdown of the assessment.
I can see Robbie nodding in affirmative to that. Our third speaker is Sophie Comben, or Comer. I wasn't sure.
So can I ask questions first, or can I lead into my remarks, or is it? Okay, so my first question was, are we doing just maintenance to this drain, or are we extending this drain?
At this point, we are simply updating the engineering report to provide an assessment table to include culverts. So as Gary said, maintenance is as requested, and there are no extensions proposed through this report.
Okay, and that's what the township is deciding as a whole right now, or in regards to the extension?
Maybe I can answer that one, Sarah. Basically, we do maintenance when requested, because we know it's all the people paying for it. So we don't just go ahead and do it. We do it on a request basis, so.
Okay. And I think my biggest concern here, I work in a job where there's a lot of lingo. I know what it is to have acronyms. I know what it is to have a whole bunch of crap that you really don't know what, you really don't know what it is unless you work in that job. And I think it's really troubling to see the lack of transparency that's coming from this municipality, because I know what I'm reading. I've done an undergraduate in engineering. I've done a master's in law, so I know what I'm reading. But I can tell you just by looking at the amount of people that are here, people don't know what the hell is on this document. And I don't think people know what this means to them. Because if this is a $1 million project, that's $4 grand out of my pocket. And I mean, I don't get grants. I don't have agricultural land. And you know what? The people that have more land than me and that do have agricultural land pay less than that. And I don't think people quite understand that. And I think it's really shameful that you guys couldn't have taken like maybe 4 or 5 minutes. I know what it is to do a couple bullet points and really list out, look, this is what we're talking about, this is what we're trying to implement, and I want to see what your guys' feedback is. Like you said, there's about 8,000 property owners in this, or 8,000 hectares or whatever in this. And if you guys have the time to send out a document that is stating that this is something that's going to happen, this is the meeting, I think you guys also have the time to send out a document attached to that that explains exactly what is happening. And I mean, no offense to my fellow people, but dumb it down. Like, it really isn't hard, because people don't speak engineer and people don't speak law. Drainage Act, Section 78, Drainage Act, Section 84 means absolutely nothing to so many people. And again, engineering words, engineering background, talking about drainage, again, people don't know what this is. And I think you guys really could have done a better job at making sure that every single person that is essentially being told, hey, we need money from you, understands exactly what's happening.
I'll take, sorry, that would be addressed more at administration, so that would be myself. Council does governance, so that would be directly at me. We did host last April, May, June, a site meeting in North Lancaster where we invited all residents on this drain to come in and find out about this project. We provided a presentation. We spoke for an hour with, I think we had about 60 people who showed up. So I'm not sure if you received that or were in attendance at that meeting. That was like our kickoff. So we said, community, we are embarking on this. Give us your feedback. Gary and Sean and McIntosh Perry spent a significant amount of time liaising with landowners throughout this process who had concerns. So I do believe that we've done a good amount of public outreach. It's unfortunate that yourself, you obviously didn't get our notices. So we'll work on that. At this point, and again, I'll reiterate, there already exists a drainage report for this drain. This is not something that we're bringing in. This exists, we're just adding culverts. There's a map in the report that shows what culverts we're bringing in. So I apologize that people felt that like they weren't informed. We did follow due process, and we can definitely take that feedback into the future when we do this type of report again. Thank you, Mayor McDonald, for allowing me to speak first.
We'll go to Councilor McIntyre, and then I see there might be another comment.
Yeah, through you, Mr. Mayor. I guess, and I feel bad because I feel like you have more. So if you do want to keep going, go ahead. But I think what we're getting at is, and the way this goes out is, we have a process we have to follow to satisfy all the needs. Because if we didn't do it the way it's going, and I understand that the language that's used in a lot of these documents it's not commonly used language for the day-to-day person. What we're not trying to do is push anything past anybody. I think what we're getting at is every person who's sitting here has paid for this drain at some point, unless there's been no work since you were there. This is not petitioning a new drain. The drain already exists. This engineering report's just being updated to include the culverts. That's the only little thing, and I'll defend staff because they have gone out and done a lot of work at this point, trying to be open and trying to inform as best as possible to keep this going. But like I say, we're sorry that anybody feels like we're trying to dupe them. We're really not. We're really trying to be open and transparent with it. But the fact of the matter is, this is not a new drain. It's just an updated engineer's report. We're not trying to petition a new drain. This drain exists. And if I called because I'm downstream, every person's got to help paid to do it because I do the same for the people downstream from me. And that's just the basics of municipal drains. It's not commonly used for somebody who isn't an ag, but it is a fact of life that I know our ditches don't always look like the water's getting there, but it always does. It's the water table, and it's within that catchment area.
You have something further?
Yeah, no, I mean, I understand the Drainage Act. I understand that properties need drainage. I understand it's for farmers as well. I just think that a lot could have, maybe not a lot, but I do think that things could have been done better when you sent out this report. You sent out a link, and I mean, the first page of the report could have been dumbed down, 1, 2, 3, 4, this is what it is. You're not adding a drainage, this is current culverts. Look at page 70 and you'll see the cost for you. And lastly, this is an estimate of, like, I mean, you can't implement something and not give the homeowners an estimate of what this is gonna cost, because you're leaving us out in the limbo. This is a cost of living crisis. Everyone's struggling, and now you're essentially throwing another bill on us, whether it's in 1 year, 5 years, it doesn't matter. I mean, at this rate, Canada's getting worse by the day, but you know what I mean. I heard you talking about the cost of hotels just as we walked in here, so I know that it's something that everybody is seeing. Everyone sees when you go into groceries, and now we're getting another bill, and we're not getting any kind of information in regards to how much this is exactly going to cost, other than a percentage, which frankly means absolutely nothing to me. And I guess my last point is I noticed that there was environmental assessment done on the Filion drain in 2008. And I just wanted to know, because I read on the report that it said there was going to be mitigation measures, and I just wanted to know if this report is going to be updated and what these mitigation factors are.
That is an excellent question. I don't have an answer today, but I'd be pleased to follow up and let you know.
Okay.
Thank you very much. And yes, municipal drains are never always that popular, so thank you for pointing some ways we can do it a little more clearly. Deputy Mayor Lang.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, through you. And just, I'm getting a feeling maybe some people don't realize that this is forever, basically. That any work that needs to be done in the future, whether it's 5 years from now, 10 years from now, 25, 30 years from now, is going to be assessed, whatever the percentage, when you look in that report and the percentage that you're going to be assessed, if you're upstream, you're going to get that. And it could be next year, it could be 30 years from now. So for eternity, that property, not just you, if you sell the property, whoever buys it is going to receive that assessment. And we cannot give you a number. Gary mentioned that to change one culvert was $20,000. They're very large culverts, you can walk through them. But 50 years from now, what's a culvert going to cost to change? It could be $60,000, I don't know. So nobody can give you an actual number other than to say that your percentage of whatever that drain costs for the, extended future is going to be that percentage. And that's kind of what we're looking here, to put the culverts in. Now, this has been existing for a long time. People have already been paying this for a long time. Just the culverts were not in it, but you've been paying for maintenance on that drain, or that property that you own has been paying for maintenance on that drain for many, many years. So it's not something new. It's not something that any of us have ever been able to kind of nail down to what it's going to cost. I mean, as farmers, Sam and I know, like, we often get it. We have many properties, and we don't always ask for the drain to be clean. It could be somebody quite a ways downstream wants the drain cleaned, and we get a bill. And it's the way it is, the way the Drainage Act is set up.
That was the end of the registered speakers. So I'll hand it just back to Mayor McDonald, and I'll bow out.
Thank you, Ms. McDonald. Councillor McInnell.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, and I guess just along the same line as Deputy Mayor Lang, when these things are constantly being cleaned, I mean, for us to give an estimate on what it's gonna cost per square foot of residential property in over 20 years it'd be near impossible. Every 10 to 15 years, one section of drain has to get cleaned, depending on the farmer. Some guys hold back a little bit further because, oh, well, the water's still getting away, it's not flooding into my field, the neighbors upstream aren't quite complaining. But every once in a while, you get to it, you get a bunch of branches and the odd tree that falls into it. You clean the tree up yourself. You try to avoid calling up Mr. McDonald to come out and take a look and say, okay, it's got to be cleaned. And I will assure you that we have the best drainage inspectors in the United Counties, because when they come out, you maybe feel it needs to be cleaned, and they're pretty good to remind you, well, another 5 years you can get away with. It doesn't need to be done yet. We're not getting complaints. We're not going out and redigging these drains and deepening them. When we say maintenance, we're talking about bringing a hi-o in and just scraping the edge off to take some of the spots where, if it's weeds or cattails are going up and they're holding back any water or any brush, or some stuff that's been pushed up almost like it looks like a beaver dam but isn't. It's just to clean it out, to make sure the water's moving. Sometimes it's a quick job, sometimes it's an expensive one, but expensive in the grand scheme of things for most people here might be $75 for the year. It's done for 15 years. It's really tried to proportion for a residential property compared to a farm property, when it's a major difference when we're talking on a per acre basis. But I guess what I'm getting at is, we're not talking anybody here is going to be getting $500 and $600 bills every year for 10 years. We're talking fairly minimal, depending on your property size, of course. But for a regular average home, we're not talking you're going to be getting $2,000 and $3,000 bills. It's really going to be, proportioned to the amount of water that's coming off your property and going into this drain.
Yes, and if I may just carry on the residential side of it, whenever drains are assessed, many of the properties are, say, 0.4 acres or under. We don't bill out at under $10, so they're big drains, and many times the smaller residential properties actually won't see this because they don't contribute enough water, and then to do the billing and the mailing, et cetera, to the municipality, under $10 is not really worth the time, because it does take a while to develop the report. So if you haven't seen, I believe it's probably been done, the Filion drain, once or twice in the past 8 years, but maybe once the extension, once the drain. So that kind of gives you an idea of when they get done, but to sum up, it is hard to give you an answer, because it really is at the beck and the call of the people on that drain. We don't do proactive maintenance. We respond to inquiries, and then that's why that's a hard one to ask. But I can appreciate the percentages are not the best communication tool, but it's what we got at this point. And I think you have a follow-up to, you said you might have a follow-up question, or not a follow-up question, but it might be a conversation going on after. So if you have specific questions, we'd be glad to answer them. And I believe next is on the staff report. So moved by Sam McDonnell, seconded by Stephanie Jaworski. Be it resolved that staff report 55, 2023 be received, and that bylaw 24, 2023, being a bylaw to provide for amendments to the Filion drain, be read a first, second time and provisionally adopted this third day of April 2023. Were there any questions from the report? All right, and just for the audience, a first and second time means we will come back for a third and final reading, so this isn't the ultimate staff report. So all those in favor of the motion as read? Any opposed? Seeing none, carried. So then moved by Stephanie Jaworski, seconded by Martin Lang, be it resolved that the Council of the Township of South Glengarry adjourn to the call of the chair at 5:45 p.m. All those in favor? Any of opposed? Seeing none, carried.